Thank you for coming. This is the Support Network Children's Mental Health Week dinner, and I appreciate everyone coming. We will begin our dinner shortly. I just wanted to start by thanking all parents, caregivers who've joined us tonight to share the story of hope, humor, and resilience. I would also like to thank VMH for participating with us, the board of directors, and other professionals who are here in support of such an important week in celebration of our children. Also, as many of you have noticed, we are filming this event tonight. So if there is any objections for you or you don't feel comfortable with being filmed, please reach out to Anna Maria. She's at the end and she can take care of that for us. We are also accepting donations for the Pauline Curry Scholarship Fund. This scholarship is for the young adults we support in pursuing their post-secondary education options. And we also have applications for those who are interested in applying for those funds. That is a continuous rolling application that we provide for our youth. Now, I'd like to introduce Marjorie Jess, who will read the City of Holyoke Proclamation for Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and I am thrilled to see everybody here. Next year, our mayor of Holyoke, Alec Morse, will be here. I can assure you, he had a conflict and couldn't make it tonight, but we do have a beautiful proclamation signed by the mayor for Children's Mental Health Week that I am going to read. City of Holyoke Proclamation. Whereas the citizens of Holyoke value their health and mental health and that of their families, therefore they are proud to support observances such as Children's Mental Health Week. And whereas 20% of children and youth live with a mental health condition and 50% of all lifetime instances of mental health issues begin before age 14. And even some children and youth with the most intense needs and some who are insured may not receive services. And whereas children and youth with mental health needs in elementary, middle, and high school are more likely to be bullied, absent, suspended, expelled, or fail to graduate. And whereas recognizing the early warning signs of mental health needs and obtaining the necessary support, assistance, and treatment gives children and youth better opportunities to lead full and productive lives at home, in schools, and in their communities. And whereas the involvement and partnership of family members in the assessment and treatment of children and youth is essential to positive outcomes. And whereas our nation's future depends on the health and well-being of its families and their children. And whereas Children's Mental Health Week was developed by the families of children with emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs to focus on the needs of their children and families. In celebrating this year's theme, Great Communication Leads to Family Engagement, it is fitting to increase public awareness among all Holyoke citizens of this important issue. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Alec B. Morse, do hereby proclaim and designate the week of May 5th through May 11th, 2019 as Children's Mental Health Awareness Week, and urge all citizens of Holyoke and surrounding communities to be mindful of this event and participate in its observance. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Holyoke to be affixed. Signed, Alex Morse, Mayor. So we appreciate this. And he had a conflict tonight, but I can assure you that he will be here next year. Okay, so next on the agenda is we are going to be getting in line for dinner, but I have to get the banquet manager because she's going to call tables, so hold on. Yes.
How are you? I'm Shauna. Nice to meet you. Hi, Scott. We are parents. Like the parent table. Oh, the parent table. Okay. Maybe one of them. Yeah. Parents of we got a part in everything.
Hi everyone. You're still getting coffee or dessert or need to stretch. We're totally okay with that and invite you to do what works for you, but we're going to start our second part of our program for this evening. I am so happy to be here. I often say I walk among warriors, and sometimes warriors can sound like worriers. And sometimes warriors worry. So I just want you to know, one of the reasons why I'm excited to be here tonight is because I know how isolating our experiences can be. And when you walk into a room and you know other people have had experiences, it feels so good to be in that company. So thank you for those of you who have had a really long day and you didn't know how you were going to be able to get here and be present and have a meal and sit through a program. I really appreciate whatever you had to do to show up tonight. And I'm especially honored that we have folks who are sharing their stories with us. And so I just want us to have generous hearts as they share their stories and their brilliance. Just really excited about that. So I'm Crystal Appleby. I'm the Executive Director of the Western Mass Training Consortium. And I want to honor Mary Lou Sullivan, the former Executive Director, over 4 decades of leadership. And she's here tonight to honor the work. And I have to say, at the consortium, we're invited to show up in our whole selves. And that was modeled for me by Mary Lou at a very young age. And so talking about your own parenting experience, your own lived experience, and so I really appreciate you being here tonight. We're among company. The consortium creates conditions in which people with lived experience pursue their dreams and strengthen our communities through full participation. We couldn't be happier to support the support network in its work. We went through some leadership change this year. I want to honor the work of the shoulders of the folks who we stand on in doing this work. Pauline Curry, who was the first support network director. Carol Lambert, who was the director. And then this year, we have 2 co-directors, Gretchen Iman and Marjorie Jess. And I had no idea that I was going to get the opportunity to work closely with them in transitioning to my role, and so it's just been such a gift. One of the reasons why it's a gift, when you think about co-directorship, you think about communication, sharing time, how can you be efficient in decision making when 2 people have to talk things through, and if any of you know Marjorie and Gretchen, you know they're going to talk things through. But their shared leadership style invites the excellence of Anna Maria Savastino, who's in the back filming for us tonight. Jan Lambert, who's over there, Jan. And Cynthia Santiago, who did such a beautiful job welcoming us. So just imagine what a staff team meeting is like with this brilliance. I mean, it's just fantastic. And Gretchen and Marjorie facilitating those decision making, there's really shared leadership in action. Just want to honor and appreciate that. And it would have been so easy to say no to this dinner because of that transition and all that we were going through. And we said, let's keep it simple. Well, there's about 90 of us here tonight. Is that simple? I think that's amazing and really speaks to the importance of this work, don't you? Yeah. So thanks again for being here. Quick thank yous. I think, Cynthia, you said thank you to DMH. I also want to say thank you to Sean for coming here, Dr. Swanson, for Lori, just making the time to come out tonight. I really, really appreciate that. Linda and Pedro and Maureen, 3 board members coming to this event tonight is huge. Thank you so much for your time. Greater Consortium support, wave your hands who are here. We have a lot of support for the support network and appreciate all of you showing up. I think that's all of my thank yous. All right. So, let's move into story time. Marjorie, would you like to come up? Thanks, everyone.
I typically don't read anything. I usually just get up and talk. But I am actually reading a small biography about Gretchen. And then I'm going to add my own words. But let me tell you about Gretchen. Gretchen Emond is the co-director of the Support Network and has worked for the Support Network for 13 years. Gretchen has lived experience raising 2 sons with mental health concerns. She has helped an immeasurable number of families become empowered throughout Western Massachusetts and enjoys seeing the families and children she works with grow and succeed. Gretchen enjoys the little things in life and is always looking for a reason to laugh. When she is not working, Gretchen enjoys spending time with her husband and children, gardening, raising chickens and ducks, watching movies with her son, and reading. She believes strongly that every family has strengths and talents to lean upon when times are tough, and that we all create our own pathway to recovery for a full and positive life experience. So I'm just going to add a few words that are not on here. 19 years ago, when the Support Network was part of a program called the Collaborative Assessment Program, some of you remember that, I was working in that program, and Gretchen was actually one of the first families that I was assigned to. And I was her, at that time, I don't know if we called ourselves family support specialists. I can't remember what we called ourselves. But I went up to meet Gretchen for the first time doing outreach, going to her home, and I spent about an hour with her. And when I walked out, I said to myself, she needs to come to work for the Support Network. Because not only you have to have lived experience to work in our roles, but you also have to have other qualifications. And I immediately saw in Gretchen, like, oh my God, I want her working with us. It did take 6 years because she was employed somewhere else, and before we had an opening, and she applied and got the position. Not that I was any part of that influence, but and now she's co-director of the Support Network. So I just want to share that she was a family. She and her family were a family that I supported, and I saw the potential immediately. So, Gretchen, you're on.
Hello, everyone. So, can y'all hear me? I know I'm going to probably wander, and I should probably take this out. Oh, God. I did it. So, first of all, I wanted to talk tonight because I wanted to share my journey. But more than anything, I really wanted to make everybody laugh. But I'm not a comedian. And then, yet another school shooting happened yesterday. And I just didn't feel right. I just didn't feel right. I felt that we needed to address it. It is Children's Mental Health Week. And to ignore the fact that this has happened again in our country just didn't speak well, didn't sit well. So I rewrote everything this morning, so I'm just winging it. So one thing that I've noticed is that school shooters are often ostracized because they're different. We can argue about guns until we're blue in the face, but what our society really needs to change is the way we treat those that are different. The system gives them labels from autism to schizophrenia, from troubled to different. People are interviewed and things are said like he was a loner, he had no friends, people were afraid of him or her. One thing I know, and I know this in my heart, is that if we want to change the culture of violence in our children's world, we have to stop excluding those that are different. Instead, we need to embrace them and give them an opportunity to be part of their community, because it is through community, through connections, that we heal. As a parent of a child with differences, and maybe some of you have experienced this, I also have felt excluded. Instead of other parents approaching me when my son was rolling on the ground or running down a grocery store aisle, parents backed away from me too. I was a new parent. I needed people to surround me and tell me that everything would be okay, not judge me, not tell me that my kid needed a good spanking. It wasn't until I got my family support specialist, Marjorie, my now dear friend and co-director, not co-worker, that anyone said, don't worry, everything will be okay. You're not alone, I've been there too. It was through the support network and by meeting other families at support groups, and later, when I was hired as a support specialist and began leading support groups, that I found my community. People brought together by a mutual struggle. When you work as a family support specialist and try to help others through their journey, you learn more than any book can teach you. I want to thank Marjorie, members of my support group, parents that I've worked with, for the kindness that you have shown me and my child, who is now an adult, for the lessons that you've taught me. You have given me hope, resilience, laughter, but most of all, community. Okay, so that's the hard part. One thing I love doing with my support group is sharing stories about my son and about my family, because I think we're funny. I think we're really funny. And we might not be, but at least in our minds we are. So I just want to lighten the mood a little, and I want to tell you about a story. And I'm going to, because he's 26 now, I'm going to just use my son's first initial. Oh my goodness. It just occurred to me. Linda Siraj was his 6th grade science teacher. Oh, boy, what a small world. Anyway, after he graduated from Franklin County Tech School, he got a job at a small grocery store in Greenfield. And after working there till he was, 22 or so, he decided it was time to apply for another job. Joe, my husband Joe, who I want to acknowledge, and he's dying over there. We both coached him. You gotta wear clean clothes. You have to bathe. You have to brush your teeth. Make sure you thank them for the opportunity to interview. We really didn't know how it would go, but we felt that we had prepared him the best that we could. When he came home, he's a man of few words. I said, how did it go? He said, good. That was all we got. So we waited, and we waited. It's, I think for the parents, it seemed like forever. It was probably a week. Then he got a call for a second interview. And I'm cheering. I think this is huge. Even if he doesn't get this job, he's succeeded. And I'm just thrilled. So we prepare again. What do you say? What do you not say? Remember to thank them. Yada, yada, yada. And we had to wait again. Finally, after about a week, I asked if he had heard anything. And he said, oh yeah, I didn't get it. And that was hard, but you know what? I gave him the pep talk. I said, you did well. And maybe you should call and thank them. Well, that's okay. I already called and I left them a message. And I said, you're missing out on a good thing. I will work for you for nothing. And I'm thinking, you'd never say that to an employee. Never. And it's like, okay, well, whatever will be, will be. And I'm just feeling so bad. Well, wouldn't you know, he gets a call a few days later. They've reconsidered. They want to hire him. And I have to put a shout out to his employer who's not here, but they're called Small Corp. They make museum cases. Nobody went in, well, I don't know. Jake went in there. He did not say I'm a person with a disability. But I'm guessing they sensed it. But they saw the potential in him. And what I so appreciate about them is that they said, okay, this is what we want you to do. Don't put your 2 weeks notice in. We're going to try you slowly. So they brought him in a few hours a day. And that went for a week, and then another week, and then by the third week, they had hired him full time. And we need more employers like that. And if they fired him tomorrow, knock on wood, they've already gone above and beyond what I could ask anyone to do for my boy. So that's your little bit of humor. Well, not humor, but it just goes to show we don't know. We don't know. We can only prepare as much as we can prepare. And then, he does it himself. And anyway, so that's that.
Gretchen, I have a question.
Yes.
How long has he been working for that employer?
I think about 4 years now. Yeah. And I don't want to. I'm respecting his privacy. However, they supported him through a very difficult time. He needed to be out of work. They held his job for him. And they didn't need to. And I would love more employers to be like that. Awesome. Anyway. So, now I'm shifting, and I am going to be introducing our next speaker. Tina Cadiz I first met Tina about 10 years ago when she was struggling with 3 very challenging young men. She didn't want to give me sort of a biography, which is okay. So I'm telling you what I know about her. She's a hardworking single parent whose #1 priority has always been her children and her home. What I loved immediately about Tina is that she says it like it is, straight and to the point. I've watched Tina transform over the years from someone who has difficulty trusting, and who is a lioness, protecting her cubs, and she's transformed to a more open-minded advocate for her children. She has a no-nonsense style that some can find a little unnerving, but it never fails to put a smile on my face. Please welcome Tina Cadiz and her pride and joy, Devontae Simmons.
I'm nervous.
Of course you are, everybody is. There you go.
So this is my first time doing this, so please bear with me. But this is my son Devontae, and it's been have my speech written out, but there's something that I want to start out with first. For 10 years, I was direct care staff. So I worked with a lot of individuals with different diagnoses. So it was the start of learning something that I didn't know was going to become a part of my life down the road. So I learned to observe behaviors. And the difference here is everything is written out. You know, you already have a plan, you have a behavioral plan, you already have the meds. With your child, you're starting from scratch. So I had to start scratch with both my boys, and it was difficult. So I was struggling with getting services, and through a friend of mine, I met Gretchen. And actually, Gretchen has been a big part of my life. She's taught me a lot. She taught me how to advocate on a more professional level, how to control my temper, because I was very aggressive because I'm protecting. And, you know, when I was a child, I was a product of the system. I was in multiple foster homes. So trust was an issue for me. And I always said when I have my kids, I'm going to always protect them, and I'm not going to trust anybody with them. So Devontae has struggled with it was different behaviors. You know, he was very withdrawn. He wasn't trusting anybody. If anybody came into his personal space, he felt they were trying to do something to him. He was just always watching his back, always observing. He would come home, he didn't act like a child. He acted like an old man, right? An old man. Come home, get his clothes off, I don't want to be bothered. And so a lot of my success is due to Gretchen. She helped and guided me through a lot. She taught me about my child's disability rights, to learn how to read an IEP, to understand professional language and how to interact or maybe behave, because there was times my behavior wasn't professional. Gretchen also taught me how my traumatic past affects me and my parenting, and to recognize when it's my stuff and my kids' stuff, and not always be on guard and not listening to professionals and seeing where they're coming from, because it was like, this is what I see, this is what I know, and this is my way. And so she helped me get through that. There was a meeting that I had at the school regarding my son, and this is when I'm starting out in the schools. So, I mean, I've ran into some problems, which a lot of parents do. They run into problems with schools. You know, you have parents who don't do anything, you have parents who know their rights, and then you have parents who don't know and don't know where to look for help. So I remember having this meeting, and I was literally about to lose my temper, because in this IEP meeting, they were lying. The teacher in that meeting broke down crying because she knew they were lying. And you know, there's a fine line. You know, they work for the school, they have to follow the school rules, and I was about to lose my temper, and I was starting to become unprofessional, and I started seeing red. Gretchen touched my arm, and it brought me down. It brought me back to like reality. And my son got what he needed, because I was going to fight for it. I was going to fight. So Devontae had, you know, very challenging behaviors in school, and he was in a therapeutic classroom with like 5 paras. They had a hard time with him. I had a conversation with a professional, and she caught herself, because she was about to say, we're all tired, which I'm glad she caught herself, because I was about to go in. Like, you cannot tell a parent, you're tired because you can't handle this child. So Then suspensions started coming in. So it didn't sit well with me. So I did my research, and it took hours, and I reached, I was like, oh, a child with disabilities, they can suspend a child with disabilities, but I went deeper, and there's some questions that had came up, and it's saying, if your child, if it says yes to 3 of these questions, the school can only suspend your child for 10 days. And then, if they try to do it over, it's called the manifestation determination meeting. So I was like, oh, I'm going to bring this to Gretchen's attention, because it's a conversation I never had with Gretchen, because they were suspending my son. And she's like, Tina, she's like, wow, you went deep. I mean, each state, the law is, it's different, but, and I told the school, I said, you're only going to suspend him. I said, you need to figure out the problem here. Like, he's had multiple of testings, behavioral psychiatry testings, everything. And nobody could figure out what was going on with him. He was on different medications. Nothing was working. No paras, no therapy classroom, no nothing was working for him. So finally, the school, when I moved, we transferred him. When he went to another school, that's when we got the answers. Now, this has been 7 long years. This road has been long. So we finally came across a wonderful school psychologist who retested Devontae and also did an autism screening. So this finally gave us a diagnosis of he was on the spectrum of autism. But when the psychiatrist, which he finally got a really good psychiatrist, when he read the report, he's like, why didn't I think of this? He says you were on the right path, but he said it's prodromal schizophrenia. So he said, autism and schizophrenia, they have similar traits. So he said he was on the right path. So last year is when we finally got the correct diagnosis. So
what was the correct diagnosis?
it was, he's a spectrum of autism and prodromal schizophrenia.
They can know that. They can know that.
Yes. Yep. Looking back at the behavior, and then there was certain medications that he was on, and someone who has schizophrenia cannot be on that medication because they have psychosis breakdown. He had one. So he was hearing voices, and it always crossed my mind because it's hereditary, and I questioned the doctor. I mean, over the years, I questioned autism, and I questioned schizophrenia, and the only reason I'm aware of certain behaviors because of what I do for work. And I've worked with schizophrenia, I've worked with autism, I worked with severe autism, I worked with Down syndrome. And looking back, it was just the behaviors, the withdrawn, always thinking somebody's doing like a little, if somebody's trying to hold his hand, he thought they were trying to do something, and he would, put their arm behind their back. The little boy, was in front of him in school, and he accidentally stepped on him and he hit him in the back. So it was like, and being withdrawn, he wasn't smiling, he wasn't laughing, he could not socially interact. So looking back, and then the school psychologist, she did a very thorough testing. Like, this woman was excellent. And once he got the report, he's reading it, he's just like, wow. Why did we, but he was too young to be diagnosed with that. He's 13 now. So he was just diagnosed a year ago with that. So we got him on the right medication. And once he started that medication, it was like a different child. He was a child. He was laughing. He was socializing. He can connect with somebody else's emotions. He wanted to have friends. He was making friends. There was a difference with him in school, a huge difference. So he's on the right medication. He's on the right track. But, the story doesn't end there. The journey doesn't end there. He's gonna, as he gets older, he's gonna go through changes. He's gonna go through different challenges and possibly another medication. But right now, he's in a good place. And I want to thank Gretchen. Because without her, is a lot that I don't think we'd be where we are today without Gretchen.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jan Lamberg, and I am a bilingual family support specialist serving in Hamden County. And I have the pleasure of introducing Nicole, and I want to say her name, Desnoyers, but it's probably not supposed to be pronounced that way. But a few generations ago, maybe it was. So Nicole is a mom of 3 children, 11, 9, and 3. And I have the pleasure of knowing her as, for several years, growing in interest and passion for advocacy, and is co-leading, after several years of a hiatus of Springfield Public Schools not having a parent group. Nicole is chairing a special education PAC. So I'm really proud of her and thankful to her.
Everybody. I don't have a paper or anything. No matter how much I tried to write this out tonight, nothing just came out right. It just kind of rambled on in 1,000 different directions. So I think I'm just going to tell you my story because that's where it will hit home. I like to say that I did have a lot in common with Tina. Listening to her story, I couldn't believe the connection that I was hearing. And I love to see that you're doing well. Gives me hope for my 9-year-old boy. My son has been struggling since he was probably 3. And being a parent, getting a phone call from the daycare every day, it's pretty tough. You're like, oh, are they ever gonna stop calling? Oh, do I really have to go get him? And you're like, who's really gonna help at 3? You call crisis and they're like, don't really have too many options. We can implement some in-home services if you'd like. So I took any advice that I could get from anybody. Luckily, I had worked in a community agency, CSO, and I met Mildred Lefebvre, who was wonderful at kind of guiding me at 3 when I was like, what am I experiencing? What am I going through? I don't understand this. So she kind of talked to me about it, and I was like, oh, okay. So it led me in the direction of finding more resources. And as I said, we implemented a home team, although it didn't appear to be too successful at first. At first it was like, who are you people? What are you telling me? You don't know my kid. You don't know me. Who are you? So it's a little nerve-wracking at first, and it's an adjustment to kind of take advice from other people, especially when you started raising one child and you didn't experience really any issues, and you're like, well, I did a good job with one, like, what happened with the next one? So I kind of learned to take that drive when I learned that I wasn't alone. Because for probably 3 years, I felt like I had to be the only parent going through this. I felt like there was no way there was other kids having these difficulties that my kid was having. Why couldn't my kid make it just like everybody else? And so it was when he hit kindergarten and hit public schools that I was like, you mean I'm not alone? You mean there's other parents going through this with me? No way, I couldn't believe it. So we have technology these days, right? Well, Facebook has a lot of support groups, and lo and behold, I found a ton of Massachusetts parent groups that were built for raising children with mental illness. And that is where I was like, wow, like this is really connecting. I really can understand other people's stories, and it gave me hope because although I met these people across the state, I wasn't meeting people locally. I wasn't meeting people in Western Mass. I was meeting people in Worcester and Boston where there's a lot more resources, where there's a lot more supports. And I was like, well, what do we have here? I don't see much going on here. And I started getting more services. We have DMH, we have ICC, we have IHE, we have The whole alphabet soup, we have it. But we need friends. We need to feel like, hey, you got this. You can keep moving. And I think I sort of wanted to develop that with other people. So I created a local group on Facebook, and I started gathering friends that were local, that were going through the same thing. And the more I talk to people, I'm like, hey, you know, you're not alone. There's more people out there. And so it's really just kind of pushed me in the direction of advocacy, which is a path I never thought I would travel. Never. This is kind of new to me. And thanks to Jan, she's really helped get me where I need to be. The reason I am co-chairing the CPAC is because of Jan. Jan taught me how to read an IEP. Jan taught me what the school can and cannot tell me. Jan taught me that I have rights, that my child has rights, that they don't have to be violated by the schools, that the schools don't always know what's best, because at the end of the day, we are the parents. We know what's best. That being said, like, my story is really about hope. You're not alone, and it doesn't matter if you're at the beginning of your journey or at the end of your journey, which I'm not really sure that there is an end. So we just keep traveling it every day, and I'm even convinced once they hit adulthood, we're still just there traveling. So just keep your hopes up, keep your head held high. Seek out what's out there, take advice from other people, but at the end of the day, as a parent, you know what's best, and you know what's right, and you have a voice. Let's use it.
Can I ask what the Facebook group is?
It's called Support for Children with Mental Health and Behavioral Issues.
And we're going to have a question and comment period for our speakers after our last speaker speaks. So again, if you have any thoughts or comments or questions, you might want to jot it down. I am going to introduce our last speaker. And again, first I'm going to read her biography, but then I have to add a bit, if you don't mind. Jessie Delisle was born and raised in Western Mass. She graduated from Hampshire Educational Collaborative in 2006. Jessie holds a BA in Humanities from Thomas Edison State University, an AS in Visual Arts from Holyoke Community College, and a certification, Jessie, you may have to yell this out to me because I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right, a certification in INUPAC. Can you say that?
Inuta.
Okay, I won't remember that. Fine Arts from college. Can you say that again? Okay. Jessie worked with special needs students both as a tutor and education and support coordinator at I'd never make it there. College, a 2-year tribal college in Vero, Alaska. And that's why I can't pronounce those terms. In her spare time, she creates wired wrap jewelry and is revitalizing her jewelry business, which is called A Polar Night. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about how I know Jessie. We're trying to figure out what year it was, and we think it was 2000, 19 years ago. Jessie was at the Bay State Partial Program, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and at the same time, she was there with my son. Now, my son not being a rule follower, and you were, they exchanged phone numbers, and that is a no-no at the Partial Program. No, you can't, you're finally with people that you can relate to and that are your peers and you can possibly maintain or develop friendships with, but you can't exchange phone numbers. So they exchanged phone numbers. And so this is very unusual circumstance because typically in our work in the support network and because I'm going to add a little to this, this is not what transpires. Jesse and my son became friends, and at that time, in connecting with Jesse's bio mom, she reached out to me knowing the kind of work that I was doing, if I could possibly help the family, especially around school issues. And so, yeah, I'll be happy to do that. And Jesse will get more into that. But then, now my son and Jesse had already formed a friendship, and so I was put in a real bind, like I'm not supposed to be doing this because it's the family I'm working with, but they're friends. Well, Jessie ended up spending about 6 years of her life, I don't know how many years, 5 years, 6 years, basically at my house every weekend almost. We even had a room for her. We dined. We did things together. She became like a daughter to me. And that's not typical of how we do our work. But I'm being very honest with how this all transpired. And I love her dearly. And she's moved back from Alaska. And I'm getting to see her a lot. And she has agreed to speak tonight because she has an incredible story. So, Jessie Delisle, you're on.
I like that Marge started off by making me sound like a rule breaker. I feel dangerous. First off, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come here and speak. I wasn't nervous till I stood up here, now I am. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone who does this kind of work, the parents, everyone. I know it's really thankless, difficult work. I was a foster parent for, sorry, that's hard to talk about. I was a foster parent for special needs children, so thank you for the work that you do. So yeah, like Marjorie was saying, I met her when I was, I think, 12. Yep, 12. It was 19 years ago, not trying to age us. And I didn't really know it at the time, but meeting her son, Griffin, who was one of my best friends and still is on Facebook, he's in Guam now. I didn't realize like the trajectory that would bring my entire life, because meeting Marge and meeting Griffin changed everything. I was in a school where I wasn't learning anything. I was getting F's. I was being bullied, not just by students, but by staff. I was falling asleep in class, and I had comments coming from teachers like, "Don't worry, just let her sleep. She's not going to go anywhere." A grown man who was probably in his 50s actually said that out loud to a classroom of 12-year-olds. And I'm sure some of the parents have heard horrible things said in IEP meetings or heard about things that have been said to their children, so this is not a unique experience on my part. So in addition to that, like part of the reason why I was acting, I was home was also really rough. So I had this thing where no safe space. I'm at school and I'm being bullied, and I'm at home, and my bio mom, who had many wonderful qualities and did get me help, and luckily like that set me off in a better path in my life. She was also very abusive, and a lot of that was being masked and not talked about. So I had all kinds of things just coming at me, and I'm 12, and 12-year-olds can barely handle showering, never mind dealing with all of these things. So I was not really capable of handling what was happening to me, and then I met Marge. And it was my introduction to that feedback loop, that what goes in your ears becomes your truth. And so it was the first time that someone would read the notes that my teachers were writing about, she's a delinquent and she's bad and she's not doing this right and she's stupid. And it was the first time that someone was reading this, and I'm watching her read notes, and her eyebrows were going higher and higher. And I was a little afraid they were going to jump right off. Because the person in front of her that she had been working with and had in her home every weekend, I wasn't lazy, I wasn't stupid, I wasn't any of those things, and she knew that. And she was in a position where, my parents had been worn down, as you know, like you get worn down from going to these meetings and hearing these things and having people battle you and start fights. People who should want to advocate for your children, who should want to get them help, they shouldn't be fighting you because of financial issues or whatever the problem is. But you have people fighting you who should be on your side. And Marjorie got to come in with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh perspective and really come in and help us fight, help reinvigorate that. And that just turned it all around. With her help, I was able to get into an alternative education program. I started in Hampshire Educational Collaborative in, I believe it was 2002. And I went from straight F's, not having any friends, having friends whose parents, they wouldn't let me hang out with them, sitting alone at lunch tables, crying every single day, to suddenly I had people that wanted to get to know me. I started getting A's, and I went from a 4th grade math level to a 9th grade math level in a year. Because people actually cared about what was happening with me. And I think that's what these services can do. They can take things and take someone who has the capacity to be at a 9th grade math level with the right support and bring them to that point. And I think that there are a lot of people who unfortunately still aren't getting these things because of probably financial concerns, things like that. Other states don't have the same kind of support that we have. Like I said, I was a foster parent in the state of Alaska, and I had children who had special needs. Luckily, there's a lot of oil money up there. So I went into an IEP meeting, and every person there was like, what can I do for your child? Thank you for showing up. Thank you for fighting for them. Thank you for being here. What do you want us to do? And actually, I think that's what it should look like. Unfortunately, that wasn't my experience. So I went in there preparing to fight, and they were like, oh, hey, can I get you some coffee? So at that time when I was younger, I was actually diagnosed with, I believe it was anxiety, and then that was also added to with bipolar, and then that got downgraded to dysthymia and hypomania. As an adult, I actually went through therapy with the intention of becoming a foster parent because I wanted to make sure I was in a place to handle that I was mentally stable, that I was, I had this set of eyes on me so that when I went to the state with my application, I could say, hey, I just went through therapy. I can get a letter from my therapist that says, even though I have a mental health background, that I'm prepared for this. And in that process, and pulling medical records and other things, I was actually diagnosed with a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder as an adult, which is very uncommon, but I'm sure as many of you know, that spectrum has widened in the past few years because they're finding that a lot of people are falling through the cracks with those diagnoses. So I was one of those where I have a very subtle fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and that explains basically everything. It didn't really change anything in terms of I shouldn't have gotten any different support. The support I got was perfect for what it ultimately ended up being. But what that did do is I had foster children who, the state of Alaska, I think, has one of the highest rates of fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. Every single child that was in my home has one. My foster daughter was 14 months when she came to live with me. When I left, she's actually still with my ex-husband. When I left, she was 2.5, and starting school, we had gotten her right into a special education classroom. I had advocated for her to get her diagnosis early, and I was able to get her intervention services in our home twice a week. Most children, they only do it once a week, and I fought for her to get them twice a week. Sorry, she's hard to talk about because she's amazing. And I actually just talked to my ex-husband last week. They are talking about transitioning her out of special education within the next 2 years because she is not only on level, she's exceeding. And so in my past, some of the other things that had happened is, I graduated from high school on time. I passed the MCAS. I have a degree from Holyoke Community College that it took me 3 years to get it, but I got my associates. It took me 9 years to get my bachelor's, and I got it. As well as I lived in another culture for 7 years, so maybe there's some of it in my English. But I can speak some Anuvak, which is that word that I use. And I also got that degree in anticipation of having Native children living in my home because I wanted them to have their culture. And I was the education and support coordinator at East Olivet College, so many of my students were dealing with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders or other issues, only they're coming from villages where there's 50, 150 students. They don't have special education. So they come to college and they're in remedial math, remedial English, and you are literally, it's like second high school. And so I started off as a tutor, and I slowly became known as the person that you send students to that you don't know what else to do with. Because I knew how to break down assignments, and I knew how it worked for me. So I would take a student who couldn't read, and we'd break down her assignments, or I'd go to the teacher and be like, this is not gonna happen, we have to get her services, here's who you talk to, here's what we do, this is the organization that you need to talk to. This wasn't my job at all, but I knew where to go for the services. And then 2 years later, I was working in the registrar's office and ended up getting promoted to that department because of my past experience with helping students. So I actually ended up overseeing a staff of 8 tutors, running training with them, bringing in people from the lower 48 for trainings to teach my tutors how to interact with this very specific subset of students. So I learned how to run training and how to communicate with students and how to help with all these particular issues. And without these experiences that I had as a child, I never would have been able to help any of these people. So I'm really grateful for those experiences. I think that, I've been in an interesting position recently. I moved home last year and have started talking to a lot of my friends from high school, like from Hampshire Educational Collaborative. We're all just really amazing, empathetic, world-changing people, and I think that a lot of that has to do with what we've been through and where we've been, and I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think it's good that we have these experiences. It sucked at the time. It sucks sitting in an IEP meeting and having someone tell you that you're stupid. But none of us will ever perpetuate anything close to that, and we're only going to put good things into the world because of those experiences. And then just to close, I have a poem that kind of means a lot to me in terms of this. Just like a little snippet, I promise I won't bore you with the whole poem. But Sierra DeMulder writes a lot of poetry for abuse survivors or people that are dealing with mental health issues, and I love her. So this is a little excerpt from Today Means Amen. You got here. You made it. You made it this whole way, through the nights that swallowed you whole, the mornings that arrived in pieces, the scabs, the gravel, the doubt, the hurt, the hurt. The hurt is over. Today, you made it.
Parents' rights and child's rights, because mostly you're thinking of your child's right. You're the one advocating or having to protect, and I never even thought of parents' rights.
It's really powerful to know that you hold that phone or people's signature on an IEP, and I think it's like before I really understood on the power that was what kind of position as a co-parent, and I don't know if
I'll speak up, I guess, since I co-chair our CPAC. I put a lot of time and effort into researching the Federation for Children with Special Needs. If you don't know who they are, I highly recommend that you seek them out. They're located in Boston, and they're here to support any parent that has any questions regarding your child's education. They're there to support any kid. You literally can call them and say, listen, this is what's going on with schools. I don't know if this is right or if this is wrong, but they ultimately know every state law for Massachusetts. So if you have any questions, then the Federation for Children with Special Needs, FCSN.org, is where you really should reach out to. I offer any advice that I can in our CPAC meetings. I offer much information on our Facebook group, Parents Educating Springfield. You can look that up as well. I advocate a lot about the basic timelines. Parents don't know. Schools have to respond to you within a time period. And this is all stuff that you're like, I feel like the school is running over me, but I don't really know. You can reach out to these people. They will answer questions. No fees, no nothing. It's not like paying for an advocate, because I know that's a concern for a lot of parents. That's a concern for me. I could never afford to pay out of pocket for an advocate. That is why I'm thankful for Jan on teaching me where to go and where to look and where to research, because I'm aware, especially in Springfield area, that's not a luxury that can be afforded to everybody. So I encourage you to seek out the resources that are available that don't cost anything.
So I would just add, we do have many paper copies of the rules, the regulations. With every IEP meeting, you probably know you get parents' rights, which is in some other language, I don't know what, but it's not English. I don't know. It's a legal speak, right? So we do have. We highly recommend the Federation as well. Most of us have had Federation training at the Support Network, but we also have a website. Champions of Children's, what is our website?
Children'semotionalhealth.org.
Thank you. Anywho, we have links to resources out there.
What? I'm not on the piano.
And I can just say, if your child has a mental health or a social and emotional issue, call us. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Go back in.
I can probably say it loud.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
good.
The lady doesn't, the chair of the CPAC in Springfield, where are those? I know back when
We
Jan-
hold them in different locations. Our most recent our most recent meeting that we had was about a month ago, and we held it at the Kasparian Center. If you're not familiar with that, it's in the parking lot of where the Springfield DMV is now. You have the DMV and Bounce right next to each other. Well, the Kasparian Learning Center is a Springfield public school building, and it's on the side of the DMV. They opened it up for us to use their projectors in their space, and we actually had a good turnout. The room was very full, and I meet with my co-chair tomorrow to discuss our last meeting before the school year is over. We are looking to have them in different locations. We wanted to have it at Central at the last time because it's the most centrally located school, but we're looking to have them around everywhere so that parents can get to them no matter where they are.
And how do people find out about it?
We advertise it, and the school department sends out notices. Unfortunately, that's been a struggle trying to get them to reach out to everybody because the children with the 504s don't always get spoken for. So we're trying to work on making sure that every family is notified in advance, not just IEP students.
Are you loud enough?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so go for it.
I don't, was your son's name Devontae? Yes. So, Devontae. I have a question. I have a question for Devontae's mom that the diagnosis that you mentioned was, I was unfamiliar with, and I'm curious if, how would somebody go about getting, like, do you feel like you had to educate other people? Once you learned, did you have to educate a lot of people who may not have access to that kind of knowledge for that kind of diagnosis?
You know, it's still pretty fresh. It's still pretty fresh. Like I said, I've worked with individuals who was, had that diagnosis, but it was a little different when it was regarding my son who was young.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's what I'm curious about, because that's 12, is that what you said? Yeah.
yes, 12 years old. And, I worked with adults, not with kids, so I had to do some research, and I looked up kids who was diagnosed with that, and I was just like, whoa, you know, it's just different. So it's something that I'm still kind of learning, and the medication is still fresh for him. So
do you feel like the schools knew?
no, the school did not know. I struggled for years. The schools could not figure out why he was having these behaviors, what was going on, not even through all the testing. And like I said, this last one is the school psychologist. She did thorough. She was from A to Z. Yeah, when his psychiatrist received the testings, and he looked back, and like I said, it was medication. There's a medication that someone who has schizophrenia can't take, which is Abilify. They cannot take it. So, but at the time, I had a conversation with the psychiatrist, and I was like, you know, I spoke to his doctor. I've always questioned it. It's hereditary. And I was like, what's the percentage of him having this? And he's like, well, he does carry some of the traits, but we can't diagnose him. So, yeah.
And I just want to add that we're not here to give medical advice. And I think that this is what Tina experienced, and this is what her child's psychiatrist told her. That being said, prodromal schizophrenia, I do not believe is a recognized diagnosis, and they're still not going to diagnose him with that. I mean, that's not going to happen. But what some of the symptoms that they were noticing, he didn't really fit into every criteria, and I think this is where a thorough family history is hugely important, because Tina has a family history of schizophrenia, and you know that probably influenced the doctor's thinking. But in the end, it's not all about which diagnosis works for, you know, or what, it's the combination of things.
I never heard of prodromal. I never heard of that. I just heard of schizophrenia. So that is the prodromal is the early stages, early stages. So, I mean, that's a very strong diagnosis for a child. But it's early stage, and that's why it's called prodromal, not just schizophrenia.
So that, I guess my bigger question is then how do you educate forward to get the best for your child without, you know, protecting, anonymity, yeah, but if you wanted to, working with the schools, how do you go forward in getting what you need for your child when you have such a heavy?
I was nervous. I was not, you know, because I can be very, like I said, I can be an aggressive parent. You know, I don't want my son to be judged. I don't want them to fear being around him. I didn't want them to be worried, like, oh, what's he going to do? Is he going to have an episode? You know, because when you're not educated, you're scared. Right. You're scared of the unknown. So I was nervous having that conversation with the school. And they actually was okay. You know, just we gotta, you know, place them in the right setting. Someone who is familiar with that type of diagnosis, who knows how to work with them. Because he was just a kid that was very withdrawn. He wasn't out to hurt anybody, he was just withdrawn, he was just cautious, paranoid, nobody in his space.
Well, it's hard to believe seeing a beautiful young man out there.
You know, once we start him on that medication, it just brought a child out. It was just like, whoa. we were all surprised because it's not something, we hadn't seen that in years. And now he's happy.
You can talk loud enough.
What?
I want everybody to hear the question. That'll talk better. Jesse, thank you so much for your story. It's very touching. I wanted to ask you, do you have any advice for those parents that have to go through these IEP meetings when they know their child are being bullied by teachers, but their voices can't be heard because it's their word against the teacher's word? So do you have any advice on helping these parents be able to advocate with, how do I say that, fragile line between student and teacher interaction?
That's a really good question. I can say from having been on both sides of an IEP meeting, both as the child and as, a foster parent, but considered myself a mother. I had a 14-year-old foster daughter as well. So I would always be respectful of teachers. I never ran into an issue where, but if my foster daughter told me something, I erred on the side of letting her know I believe you. You deserve to be respected at school. If you're not respected at school, I want you to tell me. And I always erred on the side of because of my experience, because I sat in meetings where at first it was me and my bio mom, and my bio mom didn't always believe me because I was a 13-year-old or 12-year-old who was being painted as being belligerent and horrible and very different than how I actually was at home. And she would believe the teachers, and that was compounding my problems. And then having Marjorie come in and believe me, that's how I would say to handle it. Is there's a line to be drawn between believing your child and letting them know that you support them, and just also you can express that respectfully, I think, during an IEP meeting, and just being the calm presence. I know that's not easy, but I think having the people on my side be calm while the people on the other side of the table were kind of overreacting or doing things, that was also very helpful to be it just made me feel like we were the winners, to be the people who were just calm the wall. Does that answer the question a little bit? Yes.
Anybody else? Do you have a loud voice?
I'll try.
Okay.
Jesse again, I appreciate you bringing out the fetal alcohol syndrome diagnosis. You're absolutely right. It's one that is prevalent, and we tend to miss that. And it's very important to know and be able to identify so you can properly help that parent. So I appreciate you bringing that out.
Thank you.
Do you have a loud voice?
Not really, my voice hurts.
Oh.
How you doing? I'm Dave from Belchertown. I want to thank the ladies for sharing tonight. A lot of courage to get up there and share your experience and strength. And we've been through the ringer, me and my wife, literally. And it just doesn't destroy your marriage, it destroys the family life. We don't go on camping, we don't go on, you know how it is. I don't even have to explain. Maybe next year we'll have the mayor and maybe a couple men speakers next year, maybe. I have to send out a round of applause for the women, because they take the brunt of it. I truly believe that. The mothers are there. We've been through the ringer, like I said. We've been in meetings with Marjorie. Thank God, Marjorie, we have her on our team. They say they're transparent. They are. You feel like you're completely invisible in those meetings. And the legal language they use when you first go in there by yourself is you feel lost and hopeless. We have two sons that are graduating. One graduated from college. The other one's going to graduate next week. And then we have our special needs daughter. And they want to blame the parents or the mother. And I feel bad for the mother sometimes. I know my wife. We've been to so many meetings, so many IEPs, so many different schools, so many therapists, and we don't stop. But like one of you were sharing, is that they look at the parents like they did something wrong. Then you have DCF climbing in your life. they've been a big help for us in the past, you know, and we had to pull our daughter out of school to homeschool her because there was so much DCF problems, the school doesn't understand. And I just want to thank everybody again that we have a place that we can share some of this stuff. And I wish there was a support group for men, you know, fathers. You know? Really, if I had the time. Is there? Yeah, because I've been at meetings where I'm just the only guy there, and the ladies are looking at me and saying, "What is he doing here?" And then I open my mouth. And I've been at a meeting, I think I was asked to leave one time. No, you would never do that. But I want to thank you again, and Marjorie, thank you. You helped our family out immensely. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for the panelists? Just wanted to honor the fact that all of you mentioned the steps so that it's never like, oh, you arrive and then everything's okay. And then it's not like, oh, we took one step and, you know, that should be a logical step to the next thing. And sometimes it's more of a diagonal or a crisscross than it is anything logical, right? I just wanted to thank the collaterals, meaning therapists, mentors, all of the folks that we see at IEP meetings speaking for and with the parents and the children, because the collective voice helps inform in a variety of settings, and school can just be the setting that we allow the community to say, hey, please stand with our kids in all their needs, not just filling in the bubbles for those MCAS and for the academic tests. But I wanted to encourage everyone too, the evaluations. There is so much strength here. There's a lot of knowledge from your own journeys. And if you feel like you can teach at a support group on a particular topic, it could be jewelry making because that was self-care and that made you feel relaxed and you want to share that gift with someone else. If it's something, a skill that you have that you want to teach because maybe some other parents, their children there, might want to learn that skill. We use support groups for community building. So please note on the evaluation forms any topics that you're interested in. And on the question about IEPs and legal support, groups in Hampton County have regularly sponsored different types of attorneys because we know that that's a way for families and collaterals and us to all work together in having a parent voice in the interpretation of special education law. Law is only as good as it's interpreted, right? And we have to have the voice there to help inform how our schools, our school committees, and the budgets are picking curriculum. And so that includes social emotional learning, right? So keep in mind to look out for our groups because we regularly do sponsor attorneys. Right? And that's only one voice. It's not like we say that voice covers everything, but it opens up dialogue, right? So thank you. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody who spoke. Your stories were very inspiring and encouraging. That some children with special needs, that they can get through it and be okay. One of my special ones right here, who is going to college, and the one who went through college, I was like, look, David, it can be done. Because he gets discouraged because he thinks it's going to take him way too long. So I just want to thank you because it's very inspiring.
I just want to say something as a parent and not a speaker. It's very nice to see all of you here. This is like an amazing turnout. And at one point in time, I read something, I honestly can't remember who says it, but it sticks with me. And it was, acceptance is the first step to awareness. Okay, and so like Gretchen said, everybody wants to throw out a label and somebody's something and somebody's that. At the end of the day, it's about accepting differences, and all of us by being here, providers, parents, collaterals, it's very nice to see teamwork among everybody and acceptance that there are differences and we are here to help everybody as a team. So thank you for everybody.
And I just want to say one thing. Everyone in here has a story to tell, and everyone's story is unique. And just keep doing the best that you can do, being a parent advocating for your child.
I got it under control, Gretchen.
Of course you do.
I just want to thank our 4 panelists, the experts. Every year when we've had a dinner, we've had a keynote presenter, various psychologists, a variety of experts. But I am really pleased tonight to have the real experts here, and I applaud them and thank them for volunteering to do this and telling their very personal stories as well. First of all, again, I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. I am just thrilled by the turnout that we had. I am thrilled by the delicious meal. And I am thrilled by our panel of speakers who I think told incredible stories. And I am very proud of Nicole. I've never met you, but I am very proud of the 3 of you and Gretchen for telling her story. It's your turn.
I don't have a lot more to say. Everybody, thank you for coming and have a wonderful evening. Drive carefully, and we'll see you next year.